Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Government House on this morning's ceremony. My name is Hugh Borriman. I have the honour to be Official Secretary to His Excellency the Governor, and I'll be the Master of Ceremonies today. As we start, could you please ensure that your mobile phones are turned to silent, and please no photography during the ceremony. You're more than welcome afterwards to take photographs in the house or the grounds, and of course we do have an official photographer here today. The ceremony is also being live streamed at the moment on our YouTube channel, and in a day or so will be uploaded there if you would like to look at it again. This is the third of three ceremonies to present Australian honours which were announced on Australia Day this year. Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the arrival of His Excellency the Governor and Mrs. Lay, and please remain standing for the playing of the Vice-Regal Salute. Your Excellency, the following appointment to Member of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been made. Emeritus Professor Wilfred Robertson Prest is recognised for significant service to tertiary education and to the law and legal history. Emeritus Professor Prest is one of Australia's most distinguished historians of the law. He has particular expertise in 18th century legal history and the works of Sir William Blackstone, the prominent legal theorist and judge from this period. Professor Prest studied as a Rhodes Scholar for his doctorate at the University of Oxford, becoming a lecturer in history at the University of Adelaide in 1966. He spent 2 years as assistant professor at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore before returning to the University of Adelaide, where he remained a member of the history department until 2002. With a modesty belying his eminent scholarship, he is widely regarded as a generous colleague who has devoted much effort to encourage younger historians. Professor Prest has also made an outstanding contribution to the intellectual life and culture of South Australia through his roles as Chairman of the Art Gallery of South Australia, President of the History Council of South Australia, and a member of the Board of Arts Access SA. Emeritus Professor Wilfred Robertson Prest. Excellency, the Public Service Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Ms. Sarah Moore is recognised for outstanding public service to cancer pathology science in South Australia. As head of the Cancer Cytogenics Laboratory at SA Pathology, Ms. Moore works tirelessly to provide outstanding service to South Australian and interstate patients with cancer. She has demonstrated leadership at a state, national and international level over a career spanning 40 years, and is internationally recognised in the field of cancer cytogenetics, evidenced by her appointment to the International Cytogenomics Nomenclature System Standing Committee. Ms. Moore has mentored young scientists, technical staff and trainee pathologists. Her skills as a clinical scientist are valued by the South Australian and interstate trainee medical officers, particularly those in the disciplines of clinical and laboratory haematology and oncology. She is a member of the Board of Censors of the Australian Society of Diagnostic Genomics and an examiner for the Australasian Society of Human Genetics. Ms. Sarah Moore. Mrs. Hermione Ranieri is recognised for outstanding public service to people management and to public sector reform in South Australia. Mrs. Ranieri has consistently demonstrated an unwavering commitment to shaping the future of our state's public sector by driving sector-wide reform. She is a strong advocate for diversity and gender equality in leadership in the public sector and challenges barriers to drive innovative, collaborative and connected services for the South Australian community. She is recognised for successfully placing a significant number of people with disability in ongoing employment in the South Australian public sector. She has also been a powerful advocate of domestic violence awareness in South Australia and drove the introduction of paid domestic violence leave for public sector employees. She has championed Aboriginal employment programs, disability employment programs, the Jobs for Youth program, and many other programs under the South Australian Public Sector Diversity and Inclusion Strategy. Mrs. Hermione Ranieri. Dr. Duncan Alexander Taylor is recognised for outstanding public service to forensic DNA statistics in South Australia. Dr. Taylor commenced work with Forensic Science SA in 2005 and is currently the Principal Forensic Scientist for Forensic Statistics. In recent times, he has provided expert DNA evidence in some of South Australia's most compelling criminal cases. In conjunction with scientists at the Institute of Environmental Science and Research in New Zealand, Dr. Taylor has developed software called STRMix, which interprets DNA profiles. This software has significantly decreased the number of samples from crime scenes needed to obtain useful information, and is now used by laboratories around Australia and increasingly around the world. Dr. Taylor is also an Associate Professor in Biology at Flinders University, supervising honours, masters and PhD students. He has written or co-authored more than 90 papers in professional journals and 2 books, as well as presenting his research at many national and international conferences. Dr. Duncan Alexander Taylor. Your Excellency, the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been awarded to the following recipients. Mr. Timothy Daniel Bourne is recognised for service to the administration of justice and to the law. For 15 years, Mr. Bourne showed outstanding dedication to his role as Deputy Presiding Member of the South Australian Parole Board, alongside his legal practice work. Known as a compassionate, efficient and thorough lawyer, he was widely respected for his fair and firm parole board considerations. Outside of board hearings, he willingly gave of his time to visit the APY lands, as well as other country centres, to meet with prisoners, parolees and staff at community correctional centres. Mr. Bourne worked as a lawyer with Stanley and Partners for 20 years before establishing his own firm, Bourne Lawyers, in 2000, and is recognised as one of South Australia's leading employment law practitioners. He is also acknowledged for his contribution as a member of several professional bodies, including the Law Society of South Australia, Medico-Legal Group, Australian Labour Law Association, Society of Labour Lawyers, and the Australian Labour and Employment Relations Association. Mr. Timothy Daniel Bourne. Mr. David Coluccio is recognised for service to people living with cystic fibrosis and to the community. Mr. Coluccio is the principal and co-founder of Senexus, an aged care placement service which draws on his extensive knowledge of the sector and service providers in South Australia. An advocate for quality, accessible aged care, Mr. Coluccio has undertaken a variety of management roles in health, medicine, higher education and children's services. These include Operations Manager for the Women's and Children's Hospital Foundation, Chair of the Cure for Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and Development Officer at St Michael's College. During his time at the Hospital Foundation, Mr. Coluccio raised funds for and project managed the redevelopment of the play deck and was instrumental in the fundraising and construction of the Starlight Room. Under his leadership of the Cure for Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, the charity grew into a multi-channel national fundraising organisation, granting more than $2 million in support of research. He is also recognised for his leadership roles at the Adelaide University Union, Campus Retail Services and Unibooks. Mr. David Coluccio. Mrs. Valerie Dix is recognised for service to the community, particularly to children with mobility issues. Mrs. Dix has devoted many decades to Lions and to empowering children with disability to reach their potential. As a tireless volunteer, trustee and chair of the Australian Lions Children's Mobility Foundation, her work has enabled many children to walk, explore and play. In recognition of her dedication, Mrs. Dix was the first recipient in Australia of an Australian Lions Children's Mobility Foundation Silver Award and later the Gold Award. She has also been a dedicated member of the Glenside Lions Club, undertaking the roles of President and Vice President. Most recently, Mrs. Dix was presented with the Lions International's highest honour, the Melbourne Jones Fellowship, for exemplary service and dedication to the community and Lions. Mrs. Valerie Dix. Your Excellency, the following appointments to Member of the Order of Australia in the General Division have been made. Emeritus Professor Peter John Roberts-Thomson is recognised for significant service to medical education and to immunology. Emeritus Professor Roberts-Thomson has devoted his professional career to the diagnosis and management of systemic autoimmune disorders such as arthritis and scleroderma. After gaining experience in general practice in Western Australia and the Northern Territory, he spent the next 3 years at Oxford, researching the immune mechanisms in rheumatic and inflammatory disorders. Later, a prestigious Fulbright scholarship took him to Dallas, Texas, to study with the doyen of American rheumatology, Professor M. Ziff. In 1980, Emeritus Professor Roberts-Thomson was appointed Staff Specialist in Immunology at Flinders Medical Centre. His career progressed, and by 1999, he was Professor and Chairman of the Department of Immunology, Allergy and Arthritis. From 2008 to 12, he was Clinical Director of the Immunology Directorate of SA Pathology. Widely known as an enthusiastic researcher, teacher and mentor, he was awarded Emeritus Professor status with Flinders University after retiring from full-time work. Emeritus Professor Peter John Roberts-Thomson. Emeritus Professor Wayne John Sampson is recognised for significant service to dental education in the field of orthodontics. Emeritus Professor Sampson has rendered outstanding service to dental education and the specialty of orthodontics for more than 40 years. In 1995, he was appointed the inaugural P.R. Begg Chair in Orthodontics at the University of Adelaide, retiring in 2014. By then, he was the longest-serving orthodontic academic in Australia. Known for his tenacity and strong work ethic, he set high standards for his students. During his career, he was the principal supervisor for more than 60 student research projects and numerous doctoral research candidates. He has more than 70 publications in refereed journals and has been in demand as a lecturer in Australia and overseas. Emeritus Professor Sampson has been involved with numerous professional organisations, including the Australian Society of Orthodontists, the Australasian Begg Society of Orthodontists, and the South Australian Medical Heritage Society. Emeritus Professor Wayne John Sampson. Your Excellency, the Ambulance Service Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Mrs. Jennifer Annette Clements is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian Ambulance Service. Mrs. Clements was a volunteer for the SA Ambulance Service in the Far North and West Coast region for 3 decades. Based at Kimber for many years, she was often on call for 24/7, becoming locally known as the go-to AMBO. Mrs. Clements was a volunteer team leader for 18 years, as well as a peer support officer, providing leadership and support to many within her team and throughout the West Coast. As a volunteer team leader, Mrs. Clements actively recruited members of her small local community and surrounds to be ambulance service volunteers. She also contributed to the Far West Zone as a committee member and was a representative on the Commercial Ambulance Services Advisory Committee. Now in her 80s, Mrs. Clements retired from volunteer duties only in 2020. Mrs. Jennifer Annette Clements. Mr. David William Place is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the South Australian Ambulance Service. Mr. Place is the Chief Executive Officer of the SA Ambulance Service. He began his career with the service in 1984, quickly ascending to leadership roles. In 2004, he became Chief Officer of the State Emergency Service, then Chief Executive of the SA Fire and Emergency Services Commission. In 2014, he returned to SA Ambulance Service and has served as Chief Executive since 2018. Mr. Place promotes a culture of respect, inclusiveness and patient safety and development of staff within the SAAS for the future. Over the years, he's been a champion of many long-term changes that have strengthened the delivery of care for South Australians and is a strong supporter of innovation that improves patient safety and experience. Mr. Place has also demonstrated outstanding leadership during the recent challenges posed by the South Australian bushfires and the COVID-19 emergency. Mr. David William Place. Your Excellency, the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been awarded to the following recipients. Mr. David Wyndham Hamilton is recognised for service to medicine and to professional associations. Mr. Hamilton has been a prominent member of the Adelaide medical profession for many decades. He was a consultant surgeon at both Queen Victoria Hospital and Adelaide Children's Hospital from 1971 until they merged in 1989. He is also a former consultant surgeon at the Adelaide Women's and Children's Hospital. Since 1973, he has held various surgical roles at Modbury Hospital, from senior visiting surgeon to head of surgery, and in 2006, he was appointed emeritus senior surgeon. Mr. Hamilton has supported his profession extensively by working with professional bodies and other organisations. He has been a member of the SA medical panels and was previously an examiner for the Australian Medical Council. He is a former board member of the SA Postgraduate Medical Education Association and has been heavily involved in both the Australian Medical Association and the Australian Association of Surgeons. Mr. David Wyndham Hamilton. Mr. Stephen Matthews is recognised for service to publishing. After graduating from Cambridge University, Mr. Matthews worked as a teacher in both the UK and Australia before embarking on a successful career as a bookseller. He established Ginninderra Press in Canberra in 1996 to give voice to lesser-known Australian writers before moving the award-winning independent publishing house to Port Adelaide in 2008. Ginninderra Press has published more than 400 titles, focusing its opportunities on new and emerging authors, as well as those writing in non-mainstream genres. Mr. Matthews also published How Did the Fire Know We Lived Here? Canberra's Bushfires, January 2003, raising more than $73,000 for the Canberra Bushfire Recovery Appeal in the process. He has written book reviews, author profiles and articles for the Canberra Times and the Australian Book Review, as well as being a judge for various literary awards and competitions. Mr. Stephen Matthews. Mrs. Janice Margaret Roy is recognised for service to people living with leukemia and to seniors. Mrs. Roy founded Lilies for Leukemia with her husband Harold in 2006, following the death of their daughter Marilyn. As a major supporter of the Royal Adelaide Hospital Research Fund, Lilies for Leukemia has raised significant funds for leukemia research at the RAH. Lilies for Leukemia funded 2 isolation rooms in the refurbished RAH Cancer Centre, which were officially opened in February 2011. Since moving into her unit at Hope Valley Lutheran Homes in 1997, Mrs. Roy has been heavily involved in advocating for residents. From 1998 to 2003, she sat on the committee of the Hope Valley LHI Retirement Services and was Vice President from 2000 to 2001. She also coordinated the craft group for residents for several years and has been an active member of the Hope Valley Uniting Church. Mrs. Janice Margaret Roy. Your Excellency, the following appointment to Member of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been made. Mrs. Heather Ann Thompson is recognised for significant service to lifesaving. Developing a passion for surf lifesaving in the 1980s, Mrs. Thompson has lived up to her personal mantra, "Don't stand back, get involved." She has been a member of the Australian High Performance Team and is a trainer, assessor and official. She has also been a beach referee at the Australian and World Championships. Known for her people skills, Mrs. Thompson has facilitated many state development camps, interstate trips, and has taken a development team of athletes to New Zealand. A member of the National Youth Development Panel for many years, she contributed to the design of the original age group leaders courses. In recognition of her long-standing involvement, Mrs. Thompson is a life member of Surf Lifesaving Australia, Surf Lifesaving South Australia, and Westport Little Athletics. She is also recognised for her community involvement with the Lefevre Community Children and Youth Centres, as well as Little Athletics, ice hockey, and netball. Mrs. Heather Ann Thompson. The Honourable Patricia Lynn White is recognised for significant service to engineering and to the people and Parliament of South Australia. Ms. White is a tireless advocate for the engineering profession and an outstanding role model for women in the fields of engineering and politics. As National President and Chair of Engineers Australia, she steered the organisation through a period of growth, modernisation and renewal. During her 16-year parliamentary career as the member for Taylor, Ms. White served in the Shadow Ministry and, following the election of the Rann government, as a minister. Her portfolios included Education and Children's Services, Transport, Science and Information Economy, and Urban Development and Planning. Known as a creative and innovative thinker, her contribution to the University of Adelaide's Faculty of Engineering, Computer and Mathematical Sciences for more than 11 years was acknowledged with the awarding of an honorary doctorate. Now a company director and consultant, Ms. White has contributed to several organisations including Australia Post, Flinders Port Holdings, Office of the National Rail Safety Regulator and the Motor Accident Commission. The Honourable Patricia Lynn White. Your Excellency, the Australian Corrections Medal has been awarded to the following recipients. Ms. Alicia Murphy is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the Correctional Services of South Australia. Ms. Murphy joined the South Australian Department for Correctional Services as a Community Corrections Officer in 2001. She has undertaken roles including Intervention Worker, Policy Officer, a Case Management Consultant, Community Corrections Training Coordinator, and as Manager Offender Development at Mobilong Prison. In 2013, she became Area Manager of Elizabeth Community Corrections. She has a daily frontline involvement with and management of offenders in her area, as well as direct oversight of the highest risk offenders across the Elizabeth caseload. She has developed a number of strong interagency relationships that ensure high-risk offenders in the community are supervised collaboratively. These relationships also ensure that local services are oriented towards the need of the offender cohorts to ensure they receive the psychosocial support required to turn their lives around. Ms. Alicia Murphy. Mr. Kevin Wennon is recognised for distinguished service to the community within the Correctional Services of South Australia. Mr. Wennon commenced with the South Australian Department for Correctional Services in 1977 and has worked at Port Augusta Prison ever since. He has mentored numerous custodial staff, providing guidance, knowledge and the wisdom of his experience on the role of being an effective correctional officer and working in a diverse and demanding correctional environment. His positive influence within his staff group has proven invaluable, showing strong leadership during his contributions to daily prison operations. His actions have supported a culture of continuous improvement and he is committed to peer training and development. Mr. Wennon maintains the highest professional standards of interactions with prisoners and is well regarded by the prison population. He is empathetic to prisoner needs and circumstances and maintains awareness of the dynamics that a high security environment presents. Mr. Kevin Wennon. Your Excellency, the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division has been awarded to the following recipient. Mr. Robert John Sloan is recognised for service to local government and to the community of the Barossa Valley. Mr. Sloan was elected to the Barossa Valley Council in 2010 and served as Mayor from 2014 to 18. His involvement in Council capped off a long history of service to the community, spanning health and sport to music and festivals. Mr. Sloan was on the board of the Tanunda War Memorial Hospital from 1990 to 1998, including 3 years as chair. He has also been chair of the Barossa Area Health Services Board and the Wakefield Regional Health Board. From 1994 to 1997, he served on the steering committee for the new Barossa Area Hospital. His love of AFL is reflected in his umpiring commitments, including as fitness coach of Port Lincoln Football League Umpires Association for many years. He is also a keen musician, playing in the Nuriopta Town Band in the 1990s. Mr. Sloan has also been president of both Barossa Rotary and Apex clubs and is a former member of the Barossa Vintage Festival Management Committee. Mr. Robert John Sloan.